I'm here to talk about how the idea of mixed priority is outdated. Well, not really outdated, but the way we often think about it is outdated. When this concept was first introduced into audio education, maybe 30, 40 years ago, we were dealing with a limited number of sources, and the way that those sources were balanced is very different to how they're balanced today. One of the most obvious examples of how this has changed over the years is how the vocal is prioritized. Now, in music with lyrics and melody, we still believe that the vocal is the priority, just as we did 30 to 40 years ago. But a way to demonstrate the difference in the approach that we take when mixing is if you imagine that the band is like a pool of water. 30 to 40 years ago, you would have had the singer standing waist deep in that water, whereas today, you would have the singer standing neck deep in that pool of water. In both examples, the vocalist is still able to sing, you can still see them above the level of the water, but the way that the surrounding instrumentation is balanced against the vocal is very different. What we find when discussing mixed priority now is we're not talking about having a vocal up here, a guitar up here, and a piano back here. Everything exists in a much more narrow dynamic range. And you have multiple complex parts existing in the same space and needing to be mixed together. A great example of this is from the Bethel song Holy Forever. There's a Wurlitzer arpeggio, there's an analog synth arpeggio, and there's an electric guitar arpeggio that all exist in the arrangement at the same time. I'm going to play this for you and we'll have a listen to each part on its own. And a few things to observe. The Wurlitzer has a delay on it, the analog synth has a delay on it, the guitar has a delay on it. So not only do we have these three arpeggiated parts, each of them have a delay on it that adds more complexity and more texture to each of their own sounds. And what you find when you listen to all of them together, you can hear all three parts at the same time. Where an old school idea of mixed priority would have chosen one of those elements and put it up and then buried everything else in the background, the way we deal with mixed priority now is finding spaces for all of it to exist together. And as we listen through the example, we'll start with the Wurlitzer on its own, then the analog synth arpeggio on its own, the electric guitar on its own, then we'll hear all three together, then we'll add in the drums and the backing vocals, and so you'll be able to hear it more in the context of where it sits in the song, and then we'll add the rest of the instrumentation back. When the whole band comes in, something you notice then is that these three parts aren't sat up above the mix with everything else buried below. Everything is occupying a much narrower dynamic range, but you can still hear all of the different parts. You can hear the three unique arpeggios of each of those different parts, yet you can hear all of the other parts working around it. And everything is mixed much more closely together. And then on top of that, you'll have the lead vocal just poking out the top, not fighting with it, sitting above, but as if they're standing in neck deep water.